Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out for the Chatham Faculty Union Q&A session. We've been very fortunate to have people join us from a few different places. Gene, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gene Marsh. I'm from the CCAC AFT Local 2067, and we just finished up ratifying our contract over there.
All right.
I'm Sharon Brady, and I was involved heavily in the organizing of Front Park University adjuncts, and I'm vice president of Local Union 1088, which represents your adjunct faculty.
Bob Clark, I'm an attorney with Steelworkers, and I will stay here for a little while, but then our organizing council, Brad Mezzaduno, will take my place.
I'm Mary Costello, I'm an emeritus professor at Chatham.
All right. And Mary is taught both as a full-time faculty member and as an adjunct at Chatham. So, jack of all trades. Yes, you
I was also dean students.
Oh, wow. All right. All right. And I know that there are some people who probably do not want their names on the video, but anybody else who actually feels comfortable is more than welcome to introduce themselves and express their interest for why they came to join us today. Anyone?
Well, I'm Robin Sowers. And I work at Steelworkers in the organizing department and the collective bargaining department, and I'm an adjunct lecturer in English at Chatham.
All right.
And I'm Dan Kavalik. I'm an attorney for the Steelworkers, and I'm an adjunct to TIP.
Oh, okay.
At Washington.
Okay. Cool, cool. All right.
Anyone back there?
All right. So we got a few questions emailed in from adjuncts at the school, and anyone around the table who might know the answer is more than welcome to pipe in. But also we do have some folks from Chatham present, so we can start off with their questions. Are there any questions that anyone has to start off with?
I have lots of questions.
All right, fire away.
So the video's not looking at me now, but this is Dave Fraser. I'm a full-time faculty member in the science department. I guess what I've been trying to do over this time period is collect as much information as possible, attempting to disseminate that information. Also been involved in trying to manage, trying sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully to manage the tone across in the discussion, to make it as productive as possible. And I think one of the things that would be really helpful for, I think, both the adjunct faculty and the full-time faculty would be a vision of how the union sees their role, how the USW sees their role in a successful union formation. So if the adjuncts or the full-time voted, said, yes, we want this union, right? We want to join the union, we want to make a local chapter. There's a lot of lack of clarity in what part the union would play in making those decision-making role, and what part the union would play. What part do they play? What do they do? Do they show up on campus and start pushing people around? That's how some people depict it. Do they stand back and let people flounder if they're worried? That's how some people depict it. Do they play a supporting role? Do they play an advocate role? So what does the union see? What does the USW? What do they see? Or what are your experiences with that? Right? So to give people an idea of what would happen. Right? That's where they're having a hard time envisioning what would happen.
I guess you're looking at me.
I'm looking at you while you're
looking
looking
at me, kids, so I'm taking a ball. All right. Here's my experience. You asked a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to.
I apologize.
I
said I had a lot.
You did. When we began the organization efforts, it's true. We had people from the steelworkers coming on campus, looking for the adjuncts. What I think what I tried very strongly to do was to make sure that it wasn't an antagonistic thing. It wasn't like, it's not Jimmy Hoffa coming to get you if you don't sign up. But it's the only way that we could find the people, because we were such a disparate group. Nobody knew who the hell each others were. We didn't have a big meeting place that we hung out in. We crossed like ships in the night. We knew within our department who our fellow adjuncts were, but that was it. So we had almost little option but to kind of do the direct involvement approach for some people. And I understand that some people kind of get a little taken aback by that, but I want them to understand that's the reason why. That's the reason why, because I firmly believe that face-to-face talking to people is the best way to do it, because I understand people have a lot of fears. I get it. I mean, I've been an adjunct at Point Park for 15 years, and I started this working with Robin, what, four years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that, the organizing efforts, and I was pretty scared. Full disclosure, I'll come out and say that I have a husband who has a real job. And I said to him, I find it morally reprehensible what adjuncts have to labor under. For me, it was a moral issue. And I have to do something about it. And I might lose my job because you don't have to be hired back, even though we have that lovely reasonable assurance in our contract, which you know means pretty much nothing. So he said, go for it, because he knew I felt strongly about it. So Robin and I found each other, and in my experience, the steelworkers offered support. None of us knew what we were doing, and also I'll speak to the truth to this: is that they've never organized at a university campus before. Their experience was not in academia. So it was kind of a learning curve on both sides. They, of course, when we were at the actual negotiating table, they provided actual support. They did. I mean, I can get overcome by passion at times, and I had to fight very hard not to do that. When we were at the table, things got a little hostile, and it was really difficult to sit there and listen to some of the things that were said. And Jim, who's not here, and Dan kind of guided the negotiation process for us. But the decisions that were made regarding the contract were made by we adjuncts on the bargaining committee, with the input from them, from the legal department, and from Jim's contract negotiating experience. But we made the decisions to try to get what we could get.
Can I dig a little bit there?
Sure.
So I hear you about the personal piece, because it's not personal in business, but this is academics, and if it's not personal, then you're in the wrong spot.
Well,
it's always personal,
that's
right?
something that I've come in my old age to. As soon as someone says it's not personal, it's business. It's absolutely always personal.
No, because I mean, you're in a classroom with students. It's personal. Right. Absolutely. I hear what you say. So also you get riled up, and I also hear that it's not just about wages for you. It's about the idea. It's about the understanding that there's a moral or ethical framework within which the university should be working to act as an example of how to do it right. So that's part of. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say so.
So if I can get down to the nitty gritty. So after the union voted, after you guys voted, said yes, we want a union. How did you determine what points you would be arguing at the bargaining table? How did you figure out that you wanted X and not Y, and this was important, and this was fundamental to your bargaining unit, and this was not a critical piece to really worry about? How did you guys determine what those points were?
Well, of course, I mean, I think it's no secret amongst faculty in the Pittsburgh area that at Point Park, we're pretty much at the bottom of the pile when it comes to payment for our services as adjuncts. So of course, money was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And not being adjuncts, what little job security that could be fought for was an issue. I mean, we understand that we are hired at the demands of the department that we work in. If they don't have the students, if a full-timer needs to complete their class load, a class could be pulled from us any minute. We get it. But then we thought, well, what about a little remuneration for that? If we have a signed contract to teach a class, and all of a sudden, a couple of days before class, something changes, something happens, let's get a couple of bucks for that. We've done prep time, we've done work, let's do that. So I looked at it from the issues that directly affect me and my world, my limited world. And then I have to say, this is where Robin and Dan and Jim came in handy. Well, let's look at job security. Now let's look at this. Let's look at some other issues.
Did you go back to the adjuncts and poll them? Did you?
We sent out originally we sent out a sheet. What are your top concerns?
Okay, so there was a process there where the organizing committee sat down and said, here's this sheet. This is going to give the adjuncts an opportunity to put. Now that we've voted to have a union, they got an opportunity to say, this is important to me.
What are your top, prioritize these? What did we have, 1 to 10 or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, we got a survey that had some items filled in, that had blank spaces we could plug in whatever was on their mind, and then we had people rank them. So we got both information about what the issues were and issues about what people's priorities were. And then I went through a somewhat tedious process of trying to aggregate that in a way that told us, what the sort of depth and breadth was of people's concerns on particular issues, and that informed what we prioritized at the table. We also, when people had informal conversations with their colleagues, we could get a little bit more, kind of nuanced what people's concerns were and what was motivating them, so that we could find some common ground with the administration.
So I'm getting to the motive. Anybody who wants to jump in and interrupt me, you guys know me. I'll go on for a long time, so please interrupt me if you're. We get into the motive piece. There have been a lot of questions about motives, in particular the USW's motive, steelworkers' motive. Like, why are they here? Are they trying to, build their membership to make money to, generate huge, campaign donations or what have you? How do you feel that the steelworkers represented in those bargains? So how did those motives ever come out? I know this is a difficult question in this space. So
no, I'll tell you the truth. Okay. No. For me, look at, I see some of the facts that were sent out to the Chatham adjuncts here.
That's all faculty list, probably.
About what the steel workers spent and how much the drop in assets, 66 million. I mean, I don't know if these numbers are true or not, but I'm telling you, they're going to have to unionize a whole hell of a lot of adjuncts to make that money happen. That's one thing I'll tell you right now. I think that much like Pittsburgh was saved itself by eds and meds, that the labor movement here is going to restore itself with eds and meds, since there's not a lot of manufacturing going on up and down the rivers anymore. But we do have a lot of adjuncts in the area. We have Pitt. We have, you know who we are, in all the universities.
Chatham, there's a lot of them out there.
So, yes, and I think that the steelworkers, and rightly so, saw an exploited group that really needed. And when I went begging for it, and like I said, for me, it became a moral issue. It really did, especially after the death of.
Yeah, Margaret Mary.
Thank you. And that kind of was the lightning rod, I think, if you will, that it brought national attention to the plight. And, and when you look at tuition costs that have just skyrocketed, and the bloated administration at all college levels, at all colleges rather, and how it's no longer run as an academic institution, it's run as a corporation, and we've become in our position as adjuncts is just deliver information as cheaply as possible to a passive consumer. And that enrages me, number one. And so there are many reasons.
Right, I can see that. Yeah, there's more levels to it than just a pay raise. Right.
Yeah, it's almost like, it sounds so grandiose and it sounds like a lot of bullshit, but I'm going to say it anyhow. It's almost like we're trying to save higher education from itself. a little bit by calling attention to what's going on. And as a mother, my daughter just, she's in graduate school, but she went to a 4-year college in California, and we went out to tour it. And that was the first question I asked: how many adjuncts and what do you pay them? And do they have a closet to hang their coat in?
Yeah.
And do they have an office to meet with students in? So I just think bringing that awareness to people is extremely important.
Did you try without the union? That's something else that, so there's a sense
To try to
accomplish the goals that you accomplished
without the union.
Did you, I mean, was there, so one of the things that has gone around among the Chatham faculty, both the adjunct and the full-time faculty, and I'm trying my best, and please correct me if you feel that I'm misrepresenting, or I'm trying my best to try to capture some of those feelings and some of those concerns, some of those questions. And one of them is, hey, did we really give it a try without the union? Could we have accomplished the same thing? Do you think you could have accomplished the same things that you did without the union? And did you try?
Me personally,
Or
no.
point bar.
Frankly, no, I did not try personally. But I thought after 15 years there, and my last pay raise was 4% in 2008, I thought I needed a little bit of help. And
Yeah, that's what to ask.
also I have an MFA from Yale School of Drama. I teach acting over there. So I had a full-time position for a year that was not renewed, and they decided didn't have the money, and I thought, okay, that was like the wrong decision that you folks just made. So, okay, that was a mistake. And I did.
Okay.
I was full-time for a year. My what are those little things they have the students fill out? The evaluations were always through the roof. You know, I'm very good at what I do, and there you have it. So.
I can speak somewhat to making the effort without the union backing you. This was before my time, but CCAC's adjuncts did try to organize without really strong union backing back probably in the early 90s, and it did not go well. There's people that tried to start that we're not going back the next semester. So it wasn't really until we had full union backing, and in our case, it was the union that also represents our full-time faculty and had the support of our full-time faculty, that we were able to the muscle to keep them from really trying to act in any kind of retaliatory manner towards our efforts.
So you think that the existence, the union on your side, or the union representing you, was a deterrent to retaliation? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of the pros and cons of that, of the union, of being part of the union, both in the process of going forward and now that you're unionized? What are your favorite things about it, and what things? Oh, gee, I didn't know that was going to be like that. But, oh, well, yeah.
I don't think we've had it set in long enough for the for any cons to show their heads yet. Like I said, we're very new to being unionized out there. But the biggest pro for us is that, and it's not a monetary thing, it's not anything that's compensating us directly, is we're a much more active part of the college community now. In our bargaining unit, we have 240 some full-time faculty and over 800 part-time faculty. And those 800 part-time faculty were, we existed on paper essentially at the college, but any one of us could walk down the hall and no one, I still to this day have to show my ID to security to convince them that I work there, which is quickly turning around. But once you start this process, and once you start bringing together people from other departments, from other parts of the college, it really builds that sense of community within the school. And suddenly everybody knows who everyone else is. And just by being part of that larger community, it makes it feel like a much more secure space. For people that, let's face it, as an adjunct, you're essentially, you're at will, you're contingent. You could be gone tomorrow if they decided that they wanted to be gone tomorrow. So having that sense of being part of something larger than just your own role at the college, it really helps build your confidence as an employee of the college.
Your paycheck, more or less? What do you take home?
It's going to be more.
I mean,
Our contract kicks in on the 1st, so it's a very new contract.
Okay.
But we're very happy with what we got in this first round of negotiations. It'll be more than covers union dues. It's always a big concern.
Yeah.
I've been getting asked almost daily, is the raise going to be just enough to cover the dues? And I wouldn't have voted for that contract, and I negotiated.
Thank you, me too.
And I just want to say, I mean, in a previous life, I was a co-president of the Teaching Assistants Association at the University of Wisconsin, which is, obviously, it's a related but not sort of exactly similar organization. And I was there for, and we wound up taking a pay cut for that, but basically because, we ran a calculation that the tuition is going to continue, especially for out-of-state students, is going to continue to hike up at astronomical rates, while cost of living is going to go up at a much slower rate. We made with some of our members of basically of taking that particular deal, and it is paid off over the sort of medium term. So you basically sort of can make, once you have a mature relationship and the immediate sort of attempt to sort of fight back all organization, and you can actually sort of make important gains like a tuition rate.
I need to pick up on that just for a second. As I said, I know a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid to come out. They're afraid for their jobs. They're afraid to be vocal. And when we were sitting at the bargaining table, it got quite hostile at times. And I was really disappointed with some of the feelings that were coming across about how adjuncts were looked at. I was kind of appalled, frankly. But I must say that after all that's over now, that's all done, and we have a contract now. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Robin, but it's been nothing but smooth sailing with the administration. Is that right or wrong?
Definitely.
There you go.
Well, and while we were bargaining, they were represented by an expensive out-of-town anti-union lawyer, very much like the expensive out-of-town anti-union lawyer that Chatham has hired. And that person was extremely hostile and unpleasant, an unpleasant human being. But once you're done with that first round of negotiation for the first contract, that person goes back to wherever it is those folks come from, and then you're dealing with the actual administrators, and they're reasonable people. And once there's a contract in place, you've already reached an agreement. So you've got a basis, you've got a common ground, and within that framework, there's a process for resolving disputes. It's not something you've got to fight out every time. There's a way to work it out. So now our relationship with Point Park is incredibly peaceable and I think really mutually supportive. And I think if you ask the VP of HR at Point Park that question, she would say the same thing. She gets along with the union very well.
So there's a question back here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how has maybe the change in having union representation affected potentially more opportunity for shared governance for adjunct faculty?
I'll speak from my experience. At our school, Point Park, that has been kind of different departmentally. My department is called Conservatory of Performing Arts. So, I was always welcome to go to faculty meetings and so forth and so on. How much input that we have, again, I think that goes department by department a little bit. I don't know that they're going to let us start writing any rules or anything. I don't know that that's going to happen. But I don't know. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
At the community college, we were completely shut out from governance. We had, no voice at all in the direction that our curriculum would take, anything like that. what we were able to get, and this is one that doesn't come up a lot. Nobody ever asked me about governance for some reason, but now we have it in there that adjuncts can, at their choosing, take part in departmental meetings, take part in the governance process. And that's that's one of those issues that across the board, no matter what your position, no matter what your approach to adjuncting is, everybody's going to love a pay raise. Everybody's going to love more credits available. With governance, or something that really involves a lot of direct involvement, and what to a lot of people sounds like more work. It's something that's still good to get in there, as long as you're smart about how you put it in there. We were able to get it in there that adjuncts could take part in it. Not that anybody was being forced to attend, 500 department meetings a year or anything absurd like that. Because you do have to be, you have to be mindful of the people that are, the traditional adjuncts that are working. They just want to teach one class and don't want that same level of involvement.
Has it also changed job security in terms of
Drastically.
like the ability to teach a class over and over without having someone new come in to replace you?
Yeah, in our case, we have a new seniority system in place, which is actually based on the system that the full-time faculty use for their overage classes. And what it does is it makes sure that class assignments are always equitably distributed amongst the adjuncts, so that the people that might only want to teach one class a semester keep doing that, that the people that do want to teach more classes per semester have those available to them. And now we have a college-wide standardized system for how those courses are distributed to adjuncts, where before, any department head could give any class out on a whim, essentially, or any administrator could step in and say, my nephew just finished his master's and he needs a job for the summer, so you're out. This prevents that from happening.
Good question. One thing that there is a complete absence of at Chatham and probably other schools, one is any kind of path to advancement. So if you've been teaching for 8 years and people like you and you're doing a good job, you might get those automatic tiny little pay increases, but it's not substantial. But also your title doesn't change. There's no rank to use that to get, for example, a full-time position because you've advanced. So is that something that anybody can speak to?
Well, what did we do? I can't remember exactly what the wording in our contract was. The best that we could get out of that was that the adjunct must be given serious consideration. Is that true?
Yeah.
I think that's the best that we got out of that.
Yeah.
Yes. We wanted first consideration, but now all of a sudden everybody seems to have discovered the national search all the time. Now we have to do a national search for what's in your own backyard a lot of times, So I think that's the best that we could do. There was just certain things that we just.
So your titles, but you've been there for 15
I've been there for
years.
15 years.
And there's
And my
no,
titles is,
your
no,
titles is-
I got a title bump once.
did it come with a pay bump?
Back, very small back then, yeah. I'm an associate professor, I think that's, that's it. So. Quinn Park still ranks.
Right, because even Pittsburgh filmmakers gives you the opportunity for advancement. It's codified. There's a piece of paper. This is what you need to submit. This is when you submit it. This is, these are the rules. And they don't pay well. Everybody knows they don't pay well. Nobody teaches that for the money. But but nevertheless, you can advance and become more senior. And there's always a very small pay bump, but the increase in title is worth something to those of us who want to keep on teaching. And it's sort of surprising to me that they're the only ones I know of. When, it's an artist-run organization, it's not even a school.
Well, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
No, but
That's why.
but it just seems like a simple thing for them to offer.
Could you guys talk about,
I'm good.
could you guys talk about course loads and, what happens if an adjunct is requested to teach a full load? Is that possible? Was all those things that were entered into the contract, both in the could it get to the point where the adjunct could be denied a class because they were, had too many classes that semester? Or what?
Yeah, we have we have a limit. We have a 9-credit limit, correct? Because that's usually I'm always usually at maximum load there. And for us, it's 9 credits a semester.
So basically three
classes,
classes.
three credits.
So course load limit per year?
Per semester,
So you could, there's a summer semester. I mean,
there's a
you could-
summer semester.
So you could teach.
I am teaching, but I'm only teaching 1 class.
Right, so
summer
you
one and summer
could
two.
theoretically teach 9 classes per year.
I guess we could. I don't have the contractor. I can't really read. That's what these guys do. They remember that's why you need them. See, they remember all this.
Yeah, you could teach 9
We could, yeah,
per year.
okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be almost double what we can teach a child.
So, but there is a cap per semester because then you're into an overtime. I mean, you're into a full-time status. Because full-time is important. Teach 4 classes.
A little bit more about USW's experience working with academic organizations, because there's a perception that you're new to this, but it seems like there's a lot more schools rather than just Point Park that you've been working with in terms of unionizing.
Maybe I could answer that
Yeah,
one.
you take that one, Rob.
We actually have a significant presence in higher education and have for some years, but especially until very recently is mostly in Canada. So of our 3 largest locals, one of them is the staff local at the University of Toronto, one of them is a series of hospitals in California, and the other is a shipbuilding facility in Virginia. So that sort of expresses the variety of what we do. We represent professionals in a whole bunch of different sectors. But we represent a lot of folks in Canada, Ontario especially. But in Pittsburgh, this all began in late 2011 as what pretty quickly became a citywide project. And the goal is to organize everybody in town, more or less. So we organized at Duquesne. They are still fighting it in the courts, so we're litigating that. That isn't resolved yet, although we did win the election there overwhelmingly. And then we won the election overwhelmingly also at Point Park, and a similarly sort of overwhelming election at Robert Morris. We're, of course, as we're organizing at Chatham, also organizing at the University of Pittsburgh. So our work in higher education is very focused on the regional labor market, and that's in part because, one of the things that Chatham's administration says is, hey, look, everything's fine with adjuncts pay because we pay more than many of the schools in town do. Which is true enough, but that's only because many schools in town, like Point Park, start out paying during the entire region. So in order to change that, you have to have a plan that involves raising the water table across the whole region. That's not about just organizing one school. That's about a very large long-term strategy. USW is committed to that long-term strategy here in Pittsburgh. So Chatham is one piece of that larger puzzle, and by unionizing, Chatham gets its own representation, but also joins this larger citywide community, which is fighting to sort of push back against these tendencies in higher education for administrators to kind of deliver content to customers as cheaply as possible, rather than what we faculty have, which is a real commitment to students and their education in some rich sense. So that's sort of where the steelworkers are focused right now.
I'd also say that Chatham's not exactly generous.
Right.
I mean, the fact that they pay better than Point Park or Carlo or somebody else does not make for a living wage, and it's not for fair wage. It's correct. They're not for adjuncts.
And also they could change that
And
too.
they can change it.
See, that's the
And
thing.
they're very sloppy about, we're supposed to get a pay raise after teaching for so many years, and they seem to be to forget that in many cases. And if adjuncts don't go to ask for it, they're not going to get it. Like I said, I don't think Chatham has anything hold up itself and be proud of the way they treat their adjuncts.
And we're really, just to add a little, we're really trying to develop further in the U.S. Education expertise. Base and union. I think Robin's very much a part of that. A little bit the nature of the union, while we're still called the Steelworkers, although our official name is much bigger than that, it names many different industries we're in. Some of our biggest units now are also in the healthcare sector, the taxi cab drivers. I mean, we are a very diverse union, and we're very conscious about, you know, developing expertise in all the different industries we're in, and education is definitely a priority for us, particularly in Pittsburgh, where we've now been organizing for what, 5 years or so.
So, once again, interrupt me because I'll keep asking questions. But another piece that has come up is, and Robin, you did explain this at one point, but I'm wondering if we can revisit that. But there are different classes of unions. There are unions that would allow someone to show up, an adjunct to show up and say, I don't really want to be part of the union. I'm only here for one class. I don't want to join. And there are other unions that would say, well, if you want to work as an adjunct at Chatham University, you have to. What's that?
It's a closed.
Right, right. So that can you? What are the setups that you guys have, and what do you see the pros and cons of that? And then let's, if we can, think about what maybe somebody from the USW could articulate what you think might be the best strategy for Chatham, and why that would be the best strategy.
Well, you have two options as an adjunct of St. Paul. You have an option to become a full member of the United Steelworkers with a small deduction of 1.45% of your pay, only when you're working. Only when you're working. All right. Only when you're working.
And only from your pay from
And
that school.
only from your pay from that school, and only when you're working. So they're working duties.
And only when you have a contract. We don't
And
charge
only-
until you have a
And
contract.
only when you have a contract, and I will say it again, only, all right? So you can do that and enjoy full benefits, come and vote, come and have a say, come and put stuff on the agenda, run for office, please. Please run for office, run for office. You can enjoy the full member benefits. Or you can do what we've had very few people do, actually, and that's the agency fee, correct? Where you pay a smaller percentage. You have to pay for the administrative costs. You have to pay for the raise. You have to pay for the time we spent getting it for you.
No
Okay,
free lunch.
and no free lunch. That's right. So you're paying for something. So but you're going to pay a little less. What is, I don't know what it is.
It's about 80%.
80% of the
It
total
changes
fee.
every year, but it's about 80%.
Okay.
more or less.
It's called an agency fee. So you're going to pay that, and you have absolutely no rights within the. I mean, by rights I mean you cannot put things on the agenda. You cannot run for office. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. What else?
Can't go to meetings.
You can't go to meetings.
You don't vote on the contract or on office.
Oh, you're new. Okay.
If you get the benefit of the contract, then we still have to grieve your grievances and arbitrate.
That was my question. So one of the benefits is that you would have the USW would provide some representation for you if you had a grievance. Is that correct?
Yes,
Right. And if you are a full member, obviously they would provide that. If you are an agency,
we still have to provide.
you still have to
You still-
provide.
Under the law, we must.
Okay,
That's what you're
okay.
paying for.
Yes.
I should introduce myself. I'm Brad Manzolo. I'm the organizing council at SPA. I was in another meeting at SPA. Sitting for me, and I'm attorney son in the organizing department.
And so that you define that you said it was that's a closed ship or that's
No, a closed shop is what
Closed
we
shop.
don't have.
right. So that's
And that
is
is
an
you
open
have
shop?
to join, you
It's
have
called
to
a
join.
it's called a union shop.
Union shop?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Right, so that's a union shop,
Yeah.
right? So that's that. Now, if it was a closed shop, anyone who wanted to accept a contract from Point Park would have to join the union. Is that
Closed
correct?
shop is not lawful in the
There you
United
go.
States. Closed shop. And that should be in
Okay,
bargaining.
well, that's good to clarify because there's some people were asking the question, do I have to join? Those
Well, you don't have to join, but
But-
if we negotiate union security, which we will try to do, you do have to pay some dues. That's the thing.
right, I understand.
And
For the
then,
cost of
right,
collective
but you don't
bargaining.
have to be a member, and we,
Yeah.
as Brad says, under the law, we couldn't require you to be.
Right, okay,
I'll just point out that I don't believe there's an open shop at CCAC. There's not one at Point Park. they're extremely rare because they make the union position in bargaining much weaker.
So an open shop would be, do you want to join? Join if you like, but don't worry about it. Don't pay anything if you don't.
It would be, you pay no dues, but we still have to register.
Right, so it would be free lunch.
Yeah,
I see, okay. And we already determined that there's no free.
there's no free. Nor breakfast or dinner.
Yes, no free food.
I just want to say one more other thing, if I may. And that is, there's an issue afoot here that affects, I know, a lot of my coworkers at Point Park, and I'm sure it affects a lot of Chatham, is the issue of unemployment being able to be taken in the summertime when you're not teaching a class. You can't do it because you have a contract that gives you, I'm assuming that you do, because I think it's pretty statewide, that gives you reasonable assurance of coming back. And that's how they get out of being able to pay unemployment for you for the summer. So they want you to hang on, hang in, hang out all summer in the event that they're going to need you to teach in September or August without helping you survive. That needs, I fought that fight for a long time, and it needs to be changed at the state level. But one thing that I do want to say, that if we do organize all of the adjuncts, which is my intention in the city of Pittsburgh here, then guess what? We go to Harrisburg and we get it changed. And we're going to change it, and we're going to be able to have people of income during the summer while they're waiting to do what they love to do, which is to teach. So that is a really important issue. And that is something that we can only get strength in numbers. And that is something that we can only get getting into organizing labor, USW. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. So.
I mean, if I could just add, and again, you can reference Phil, but I mean, I think the important thing to understand is this whole open shop, closed shop, that 20% of dues goes to things like the union lobbying the state to try and get those types of benefits, unemployment extended. The agency fee is simply what the costs are to directly collectively bargain and represent their grievances, et cetera, employees. And so to educate people to understand that those types of things, those political efforts aimed at improving their very working situation are what the rest of the unions go to.
And organizing.
Organizing.
And also for the benefit of the questions that were raised, and I know that you've clarified this previously, but clarify it again. The union, the vote is tallied, but it's the majority of whoever votes, irrespective of what the bargaining unit will be. When all the votes come in, the majority of the votes will determine whether there would be a union or not.
To be eligible to vote, you have to be part of the bargaining.
Right.
But it is correct that the majority of those who vote will determine whether you union.
But it's also worth mentioning that I've never heard of a scenario where you have a unit of hundreds of people and 5 people vote.
Yeah,
I understand that like is a theoretical possibility, and the administration is very fond of invoking theoretical possibilities. But here on Earth, where normal people are not insane, when there's an election coming up, lots of people are going to vote, and we certainly think that as many people as possible should vote. So we encourage everybody to do so.
Well, and especially this is a mail ballot election. People don't have to show up to vote. So it's easy to vote. So a lot of people are going to vote. Yeah.
And that's the employer has every right to extend a voluntary recognition to a union, and in that case, you have majority of people. If the majority of people have expressed desire and representation, they can voluntarily recognize. The law is just set up that the majority is voting. Or how the NLRB is the agency that certifies elections. That's something that they're determination.
I have one more. I have to go because I can't have parking. But the question of voting in this upcoming election is something I was wondering about. One of the emails seemed to indicate, and I don't even remember from which side, something about having to have taught 3 classes in the 15-16 academic year. to be eligible to vote in this upcoming?
3 credits.
3 credits.
3 credits.
Not 3
You know,
courses.
3 credits, 1 3-credit course or more in this recent academic year or this summer.
That's very good.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry, I need to leave.
So, thank you.
Thank you all.
So, I'll keep asking. Anybody back there? So, in terms of, in your experience in this type of contract, let's say that the adjuncts get together. And this was something that was raised by Frank in one of his questions, and I think some people might want to know about this. It goes back to something we talked about earlier about establishing the points of bargaining. How often in your experience does the bargaining units, let's say the adjuncts, the representatives from the adjuncts get together, they put together their unit, how often do they come to you with something and the USW says, no? Like,
I can say that's you guys are. It's your union. I mean, it's your local. You're going to be the people who elect your officers who are sitting on who's sitting and bargaining across the table from the employers in the survey to see what all your interests are. I can't think of any circumstance where what the unit what the employees wanted, whose contract was going to affect them, was just dismissed. Again, I mean, we may raise legal concerns or other things with you in that context.
So this was the question, and this is where I'm getting to, because I think I've heard you say that, I've heard other people say that, and I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm trying to get it out that this would be the idea, if that's the case. It says, Article 17 of the Steelworkers Constitution says that the union has the exclusive right to determine what will be proposed, what will be in a contract, and that the international presidents of the steelworkers unions or its executive board must approve the contract before it will be effective. So that was raised, and so what does that mean for the bargaining committee? I mean, some people are going to interpret that and say, you have all this power, but once you go into the union thing, they're going to strong arm you into what they want.
First of all, another thing is because we cannot allow anything illegal to be bargained in the contract. And it literally has to be oversight of that type of situation. You know, so you could come back and say we're going to have some lawful form of discrimination in our contract, and somehow the committee and the people bargaining determine that the international is going to oversee that. Remember, we have all sorts of groups from all sorts of industries, so you never know what's going to come in front of you. And you're not going to get something bad.
I mean, it's maybe worth mentioning that that one thing that's somewhat unusual about the steelworkers is that the international itself signs the contract, and many other unions, like if you look at the AFT contract for CCAC, the local union is the one that signs the contract, and that means that any breaches that contract, the local union is liable for it. We're sort of unusual in the sense the international itself puts itself on the hook for all these contracts. Now that guarantees the international is there to defend you because they're on the hook for it. That's part of the purpose of it. But for exactly that reason, they want to make sure there's nothing bargained in the contract that's unlawful, because then they're legally stuck with it, right? So I think that's actually really, really important. That's a commitment from the international to each local, one by one, that they're personally going to put themselves on the line for what we bargain here locally, and make sure that it's a strong contract.
Yes, and make no mistake that the administration is going to have some pretty sharp lawyers on their side too, trying to not give you anything, basically.
I'll just say too, that's one of those things, you know, these anti-union law firms, union busters as we call them, that is one of those things that they grab onto when the steelworkers have campaigns. It comes up a lot. And it's, you know, Esther wasn't flipping through the United Steelworkers Constitution before bed the other night and came across it. I mean, there was an attorney looking through for things that, and so, you know, it's anything that can be used to create a sense of fear, a sense of the unknown, a sense of distrust will be used. And that's what that's all about.
That's partially why I asked the question, because I mean, it's presented as a potential bully point, and I wanted to, you guys to have the opportunity to say there's an alternate interpretation of that, which is we're trying to protect ourselves from loony contracts, right? So that's part of what this is about for the faculty, I think, who are listening on there, to need to understand that there's going to be a number of different positions there, and thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Sure, and also when we were bargaining, I mean, that was never our experience. Like I said, we none of us were lawyers. None of us had ever written a contract before, you know.
Right.
So we had a very limited frame of what we knew was wrong and what we wanted to see addressed. And thank God they were there, because they were like, oh yes, and what about this? And let's take a look at that. And then we'd go, yeah, how's that affect us? Da-da-da, and give them input, give them feedback. But they never went in, and I sat with them pretty much at every meeting. They never went in and bargained for anything that that the bargaining committee didn't agree to. Never. And like I said, thank God they were there, because they enlightened us to the other things that we should have been bargaining for, but we would have had no idea.
And in the end, the contract will go to ratification. The members got to vote for it, or it doesn't pass.
And I could say, I mean, I was a president of a grad employee union before I was in law and grad school. And it's one thing when you have a completed contract, but the first contract has so many, issues you have to hit and touch upon that it really does require an interaction between people who have familiarity and are in the bargaining unit and people who have a lot of expertise thinking through all the various things that are going to be important to you when important to employees in general when a contract, when it comes time to enforce a contract with an employer.
I'd like to say something. Some of the things you touched on. I've been a union member for 20 years, and like you bring up the Constitution, you determine what's in that Constitution as well. We have a constitutional convention every 3 years, and each locals send representatives to that, and we vote on things. We vote on how much money we dedicate to organizing and things like that. And as a local union member, like you was quoting that, some of that stuff is to save us from ourselves. But quite honestly, that's exactly what it's there for. It's a safety net. There have been times like I've negotiated a contract, and the lawyer representing our side would say, Chris, you can't stay on that proposal because it's permissive bargaining. You can't make them do it. And that's the things, they're there to save us from ourselves when it comes to the laws and things like that. And that's a good thing.
This is a practical question from the perspective of an adjunct who's been at Chatham for a number of years, and it's a revolving door of people coming and going all the time. And what has it been like practically actually having the elected officers of the union when people are hustling, going from Chatham to Cal U to Point Park to wherever, and one semester they're there and then they're not, in terms of just having enough continuity to actually do something and being able to get in touch with the other adjuncts and to try to actually figure out what it is that they want when everybody is scattered, to all four corners, just to sort of understand what that's looked like actually happened.
Well, and I'll be honest, is that one thing I would like to see, I want more participation from our members. Because of that very issue. A lot of them are running around teaching here and there and everywhere. Also, what I want them to strongly understand, and I want you Chatham folks to understand, is that if you do unionize, which I hope you will, and come and get your first agreement, then there's strength there, and there's strength to grow, and what we negotiated at Point Park, it was a hard-fought victory, because the administration knew we had absolutely no support from the adjuncts. They knew everyone was afraid. They knew everyone was busy. They knew everyone had no time. I mean, everything, same thing. Nobody wanted to step up. A few wanted to step up. They knew what they were dealing with, and this is what we got. Now, is it great? No, but it's what a 22% raise in 3 years is a whole lot better than 4% in 15. With a modicum of job security. And what I really want people to understand, my own adjuncts at Point Park too, is that now we have 3 years. We have 3 years to really come together. We have 3 years to be more united a little bit, so that when we go to the next contract, they're going to understand that they're going to be dealing with people who aren't afraid anymore, who are organized, who are like, that was great, and now here's here's what we want. That was a great first start. And now here's what we want next. And hopefully with more organization, it won't be such a hard fought battle is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, obviously, one of the whole points of this is that so that people who are doing adjunct labor won't have to be running from Point Park to
Correct.
Arlington to Duquesne to
Correct.
Chatham, and that's part of the whole point,
Correct.
right? But I just wondered, kind of in the interim, just for those who might be listening and sort of thinking about what is this going to look like when they don't even know who else is adjuncting in their own,
That's,
you know, academic
I
unit.
talked about that earlier today, which is one of the reasons why we go on campus to organize. And a lot of people don't like that, you know. They came to my classroom after class. It's the only way we can find you.
Absolutely.
It's the only way we know who you are.
Yeah.
It's the only way we have. And face-to-face is always better, if you can. And it's not to be intimidating. Like I said, I'll repeat, we're not sending out Jimmy Hoffa. You know, we're not doing that. That's a Teamster.
Oh.
Cut that.
Yeah, I will say Chatham has not made it particularly easy to find people. I didn't say, oh, here's a list of our adjuncts. You know, it's been a real struggle to find people, and sometimes the only place you can find them is on campus. You've got no phone number, you've got no address, you've got no email. You're not even sure they're teaching a course, because in some cases the Chatham list of courses and who's teaching them is behind in a variety of ways.
I think there's something I want to clarify too, is this idea, there's a lot of emails going out there suggesting the USW is something not to be trusted, but this is something that faculty have been doing for over 18 months, talking about unionizing and getting together. We talked with the AAUP, and we've been coordinating this for a long time, so there is strong interest in organizing and coming together. So I think we're deflecting some of the conversation by critiquing some of the finer aspects of this particular organization when faculty have been involved in this for at least 18 months, talking about this and meeting collectively.
I think Chatham at any time could have called an open meeting. But we can't call an open meeting on campus, but the Chatham people could have called an open meeting and said, let's discuss this openly, no, they did not.
Certainly been aware of it for
I
quite a
mean,
while.
you know, Chatham has neither done nor biggest. The administration does a lot of things, but those are not two of its qualities. I'm sure they have been aware of this for quite some time.
A year ago, we sent out a mailing to every faculty member whose address we could find. I'm almost certain a handful of those mailings ended up in the hands of the administration, and if they didn't, I'd be shocked. You know, and then 6 months ago, it was in the newspaper, and Chatham was called, and they replied, "Oh, we had no idea there was an organizing campaign going on." But well, they did then. And so for 6 months, they said nothing, and then we filed for an election because enough faculty showed that they had support to move through the process. And whenever that happened, then all of a sudden it was a rushed conversation, and no one had an opportunity. And I think that's intentional. It's easier to kill the messenger, right? Instead of having the actual conversation with an informed faculty openly. It's easier just to.
And part of the problem is that the adjunct pool is so disparate in different departments that there hasn't been an opportunity for them to share their stories. So some departments may have higher pay, may have more support, may have administrative support, while other departments are really left to fend for themselves. And these adjuncts don't have an opportunity to communicate with one another to build that community. And this has been an ongoing problem and an ongoing reason why many of us are supporting this effort, because we want to bring together this community and share equity and share resources.
It's true in every university, though. That's true. I'm pretty sure.
Can I come in really quickly? My friend has to leave. So, I'm Maria Duarte. I'm a rising senior at Chatham. I'm a representative of the Sustainable Impact Team at Chatham. We're a student-led collective that focuses on environmental, economic, and social justice issues, both on campus and in our rural communities.
Speak up, please.
Okay, I'm here today because I care deeply about the educational values of the liberal arts education, and because it's my moral responsibility to fight for any injustices towards any campus worker. Whether we're fighting for a real wage, benefits for faculty members, or for their voices to be heard, having a deep consideration of the values, opinions, and ideals of the faculty members in our administrative process, I think is vital for quality education. Faculty members know what's in the best interest of the students because they're part of those departments and they spend time with us and they know what we want, you know. At present, the lack of long-term and senior faculty at Chatham is preventing us from developing a relationship with our faculty members, and that prevents them from knowing what we actually want towards like our 4-year term and goal, you know. So, like for example, if I sign up for a class, sometimes that's like a minor class we don't have a major for. It's difficult to even know like who's going to be teaching that class like during limbo because they're like constantly changing people, and it's really annoying to not be able to like build relationships with like that professor in that department because they leave constantly. Or you build a relationship and then they have to leave, and that's also like very irritating. So we're pretty confident that we can organize a student body to support the faculty union. But I guess my question to you guys is, how can we further appeal to the student body to stand behind this, and how could this further benefit the students at Chatham?
One of the ways to benefit Chatham is a letter of recommendation by tracking down an adjunct that hasn't been there for 2 years. You know, and the fact that so many adjuncts teach means that you have, instead of having one professor for 3 or 4 classes, and he really gets to know you and can really speak to what kind of student you are. So a big issue is students will need letters of recommendation to get into top graduate programs, and they need strong letters. It can't be, you know, I know Lisa Smith, she was in my math 101 class, she got an A, that's about all I know about her. Okay. When you get to know a student, you can write a strong letter. When you work with a student, you can write a strong letter. Adjuncts have to have some time to be on campus to meet the students, for example. And so that's one more important aspect that a lot of students don't think about until they get to be seniors and realize they need their recommendation.
And also if they get paid well enough and they can just work at Chatham and not work at 2 other schools, and then again, they have more attention. They can give the students, if they have places to meet, offices to meet, instead of, you know, having to meet you, you know, at a coffee shop or something like that. Those are all things that will benefit not only the adjuncts, but the students.
Share your stories and your opinions in the communique. Students read these newspapers, they're interested in the topics, they're interested, faculty are interested in hearing your voices. So be as open with those ideas that you shared with us, reach as many students as you can.
You'd be surprised how many students don't know how many members are adjuncts full time, because I couldn't think back to when I was in school and tell you who was a full-time instructor when I was there. But once they find out, how overwhelmingly one-sided it is towards the part-time faculty, they sort of catch on really quick how this is affecting them, educationally. Because I've had plenty of students come to me and ask me for a letter of recommendation. I've been doing it for 6 months. I wish I could help you. Or how many students want to get a hold of me at camp because I don't have an office or I don't have a phone. And so generally, once you make them aware and you're able to put it to them in numbers, I'm pretty open with my students. I'll tell them exactly how much I make each semester. So you can compare that to your job. You look at the differences.
Some of the people spoke about the sense of community that's much improved in the adjuncts of organizing. That sense of community is a part of this too. They have a more of a dedication. I'm not saying that the adjuncts are not dedicated, but we've got to teach 4 different classes at 4 different schools. It's very hard to be dedicated to any one. So you just split so many ways. And a greater sense of community among the adjuncts means a greater sense of loyalty to that.
I feel like at Chatham we're very much like the communities we've built around the professors. We kind of create communities and
I feel collective advocacy, whether it's adjuncts, raising issues on behalf of issues students have raised, them is always going to be stronger than individual advocacy. So not only are you hopefully putting adjuncts in a stronger position by not having to run around 4 different schools to afford to be able to interact with you, but as you raised, it's very hard to connect to adjuncts right now. But once adjuncts are unionized, they have rights to information that are going to make it a lot easier to come together and collectively work through issues, including working with student organizations or other organizations to raise issues collectively.
I just want to say, from the perspective of an adjunct faculty member, if I could say something to students, is that I've been involved in this campaign all year, and clearly part of it is for support to be able to do my job better. But my real interest is my commitment to students and how much it has hurt me to have students say to me, "Oh, what are you teaching next semester?" Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be here or not be here. Or the student who said, "Hey, I'm going to do my tutorial on X topic, and I'm the person in the university who has the most expertise, but I can't be the chair of your tutorial board because I'm not a full-time faculty member, even though I've taught X number of classes this year." That I feel like it undercuts my deep commitment to my students in Chatham. And I think I'm speaking for many adjuncts when I say that it's really, we're doing this to make the community better, but we're doing it because our first commitment is to the students, and we care deeply for the students. I guess I would want to make sure that that's communicated.
I have maybe one financial perspective that's a little more recent. So I select for a scholarship at NYU Law, which is a top law school, and it ends up being a scholarship over $160,000 over the 3 years. So we select, like the scholars select, and read through the applications, and you can really tell when someone's professor actually knew them or not. And like when you're reading through something and someone's like, "I met them in one class, they did satisfactory," even if they've got straight A's from Stanford, which has happened a couple times, like I throw that out because I'm like, well, if this person's great academically, but they can't form a connection, then how are they going to be a public interest lawyer worthy of this money?
Also, too, at Point Park, when I started organizing with Robin, I was very discreet. I didn't mention it to my students. I kept it very separate. I didn't bring it into the classroom. But as the organizing efforts kind of gathered steam, if you will, and an article came out in the Point Park newspaper, the student paper, about how little the adjuncts make there. I walked in to teach my acting class, and my actors are sitting there with this look on her face, and this one student got up and started to cry, and she said, "I make more meat and potatoes in my Sunday brunch shift than you do for teaching me twice a week for what I've come in here to study as my major. Then what the hell, where's my money going?" And that's kind of a real kind of awareness point. It's like, that's an excellent question for young people to be looking at. Where does the money go?
I have to leave, actually. I just really wanted to say why I'm here supporting the Chatham faculty union, because I also represent the sustainable impact team at Chatham University and the Rising Junior. I was a part of the sustainability program at Chatham, and 2 of our main professors were fired this past year, and I left because I was so fed up with this sustainability program, and now they don't know who's going to teach the classes. And a lot of other students have also left the program because, well, I'm also a transfer student, and I don't even know if I can finish my major now because those 2 professors were fired. So that's why a lot of students actually left the program, and that's why I'm in full support of the campus.
And going
Thank
back,
you.
there was an environmental studies program that predated sustainability, and it got had no professors. The last professor was gone. We had several students who needed to finish a major. There's not a professor, and they were cobbling together courses and things to get people through. That's not quality education.
One other thing that's maybe worth mentioning in the context of students is that this question of where the money goes is an important question, because I think one concern students can have, a totally reasonable concern, is, well, if the wages of the adjuncts go up, is that all just going to get shifted onto my tuition? costs? And the answer to that is that it doesn't have to be shifted on a tuition cost because the institution simply isn't prioritizing instruction in the first place. In the case of Chatham, 38% of its budget goes to instruction. That 38% includes faculty salaries and benefits, that includes classroom and lab spaces, that includes depreciation and interest on the buildings, all that stuff is in that 38%. So that means the other 62% of the budget is not going to instructional purposes. Now, it's not to say that all those purposes are illegitimate, but it's just to say that, you know, one of the problems with having administrators in a position where they can, and nobody else has any power to say anything, is that they're not necessarily going to use the resources in a way that's oriented around the interests of faculty and students. Whereas when faculty are organized, they can push for accountability from the administration and to, you know, direct the administration's priorities where they ought to be. That's the students. Certainly as a faculty member myself, I find it enormously infuriating that they're so keen on spending money on so many frivolous ventures and seem to have so little interest in making sure that basic things like students can finish out a program that they're majoring or minoring in. And that's totally unacceptable conduct for an institution of higher education. So I think, you know, faculty need to have more power to have a voice in that, and I would say I would encourage students also to organize because the student voice needs to be heard as well, and that happens through strength in numbers, the same old way.
And that's what we're trying to do. So we're going to try to organize a certain body to support this union. But so what do you guys think would be like the first step? So we were thinking of doing like a petition and like letter form for students to sign. Is there anything like that you guys think would be beneficial?
I think letters to the editor of the Post-Gazette. There's been a lot of kind of battling over letters, which we've been winning on this issue, but that would be very helpful.
I think if students are willing to speak out, makes faculty less afraid. I mean, what's going to fear factor of Chatham is incredible. I thought it was bad at Point Park. Trust me.
Okay.
I personally, I've got scars up and down my back from various battles with the administration. They're vicious. So.
We're already not in the good places of the admin because we run the diversity campaign against fossil fuels, and they definitely aren't happy with our organization because we're challenging the administrative power.
Are you good? I'm going to switch gears, and I was hoping that at some point we could lay this issue to rest, which is the issue of the dropping of the full faculty and that piece. There has been so I'll explain. In the email exchanges, there has been two separate sets of characterizations, or two streams of characterizations of this. One is that when the union filed for a petition, the university objected to the full-time status as well, objected to the full-timers being part of the bargaining unit on the grounds that that we are managers. That was the argument, and that in response to that, the union then, or the organizing committee in the union, split the bargaining units into two. The adjuncts being pushed forward first because there was no objection to that, and the full-time faculty then being picked up afterwards once a vote, pushing towards a vote once we resolve the manager status. The other characterization is that the USW dropped the full-time faculty from the bargaining unit, as has been in email today. Who was somebody in this room? Who in this room was at that meeting? Is there somebody who was at that meeting, or can we have a characterization of what happened?
I'll speak to this in a technical, procedural.
Please do, just so that we know exactly what the process was.
We petitioned for all the full-time and adjunct faculty, and under that procedure, you know, if we would be able to, you know, the employer had every opportunity to stipulate to that those people all being eligible to vote, and we would go forward with an election for the group jointly. If they object more than their eligibility to vote, which they did in this case, because you guys make up more than 20% of the group. And what they can do is attempt to bog down the election process and litigation for a period that would have prevented the adjuncts from being able to vote. So our thought process was that the adjuncts, we should go ahead and let them vote and have their choice, and then we would come back and have that argument with the faculty over the full-timers in a way that wouldn't slow the adjuncts from being able to vote the union, but we wouldn't know where they intended to drop the full.
So just to restate it, the USW has no intention of quitting that process, or the full-time faculty is still a bargaining unit that the USW will continue to work with going forward.
Assuming you continue to want us, I don't think there's any other.
Okay, I'm just wanted to clarify how I missed it.
As you know, Dave, like there's one committee that has the full-time and adjuncts.
Right. Right. That's,
Think about it logically. If we weren't interested in representing you, we wouldn't have petitioned for all of you.
Yeah.
It literally was the employer's play to challenge you that led to the group splitting. There can't be any question of that. I can say as a representative of steelworkers and a lawyer, a labor lawyer. Now, as soon as we've resolved this group and the timing is right, we'll pursue the rest.
I just wanted to clarify that in light of the questions in the emails I sent forward.
I can even speak to that, from our situation over at the community college, where our full-timers have been organized for 40 some years. They still try to do the exact same thing and split us up to try to keep us from coming together as a group. They were more than ready to fight us on our attempts to join the existing bargaining unit. And eventually—
By they, you mean?
By the administration.
Administration.
Wanted to keep us as separate as possible, so we wouldn't have really their contract to build off of for ours. And eventually we compromised with them. We came up with something that worked for both groups, where we ended up in the same unit but with separate contracts for each group. But it's not, it's not an exclusive thing to Chatham to try to split up the full-time and part-time faculty like that.
For next steps, does this mean that the steelworkers will be appealing this managerial kind of classification for full-timers, and then?
Well, we will obviously meet with the full-timers, and the organizers will continue to talk with them, and we will, assuming the group wants to go forward, we will be able to file a petition where they wouldn't be holding up that, if the university continues to want to challenge them with managerial, we wouldn't be holding up any other group from voting, but we would then, of course, go into a hearing, and it would be a factual determination as whether they were managerial. We don't believe they are, but that would be something that the National Labor Relations Board would be.
Another little technical piece. Can I ask one little technical piece?
Yeah, of course.
44% goes to the local union, right? Is that correct? 44% of dues. So, and this is a question that came up specifically. Who decides what to do with that 44%?
The members,
The members.
when you come to a meeting.
Thank you.
You are the local.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to make sure that was.
It's maybe worth emphasizing a little bit that there are specific rules to ensure financial transparency.
Oh,
So
God.
you're
We just opened a bank account for the union. Unbelievable. No, seriously. It was like getting a mortgage for your home with all everything you have to fill out.
And the intent of that is that so nobody walks off.
Correct.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Well, and the officers can't just go about spending the money of the local. The members have to approve in advance every penny that gets spent. So you come to the meeting, you get to vote on whether you're going to spend money. Even if suppose you're local, you buy a building to operate as a union hall or something, and you've got to pay your rent. The members have to approve you paying the rent. I mean, you literally cannot spend a penny without prior approval. And that's intended to ensure that at all times in our organization, every penny is accounted for directly to the membership. You get a report from your financial secretary and treasurer about exactly where every penny goes. Local is required to have trustees who court audit the financial secretary and treasurer's books on a quarterly basis. The international audits the local books every 6 months. And this is one of the reasons why the steelworkers have a great reputation for financial transparency and being very above the board as a union. go to great lengths to make sure that all the money is accounted for and it's directly controlled by the members themselves.
And it's not just the union's responsibility ethically, but legally, there's a lot of regulations to make sure that money is spent appropriately.
All right. And actually, this question is. Sorry, someone else has anything? No? Okay.
I think the gentleman back there is hand up.
Yeah, I have a question.
Certainly.
I hear, I teach in the nursing program. I teach online. I know I see Dave in once in a while, but not that often. I hear talking about a lot of fear, on both sides, but I have a fear, and I'm looking at the emails that have been coming across. There's a little problem with collegiality that I'm seeing recently. You've probably seen it as well. There's also a problem. There have been any number of people who have said, we've got to have an election now. We have to do this quick. I've had many jobs over my entire career, and I've come to the realization that anytime you make a fast, a quick decision, oftentimes you end up regretting it. Another way, reflect, then decide. Why do you have to have a quick election for the adjuncts when most of them are gone? And if they are home, you're home. But if they are home, they may be ignoring the mail. They may not be reading the newspapers. They might not even be reading their emails, knowing what's going on. And yet, when you come back in the fall, there's going to be everybody around. They're going to be paying more attention.
Well, I think the first response to that is raised earlier. This campaign has been going on for over a year. There's been an opportunity for all the adjuncts to discuss and raise this issue. So to say that this is a short, quick election, I think is.
I can tell you from experience, the full-time faculty of which really hasn't discussed it until the last 30 days.
I would agree that the full-time faculty have not openly discussed it over the last, except for the last 30 days. But I would put forward to you that in many places the discussion has been extensive but not open. I think that captures much of the sense that Mary was just describing, right? That people are not comfortable openly describing and openly articulating those concerns, and so it's been 2 or 3 people discussions.
That might be very true, but I also know we have 3 campuses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at the 3 campuses, a different sense of the public, it's going to be different on each of the 3 campuses.
Let me also raise a point that the National Labor Relations Board has recently reformed its election rules, and it's always been a priority to have elections in a reasonable time period after a petition has been filed. And that is because there's always been a recognition that employers, if they have extensive periods of time to raise fear, to intimidate, to attack the idea of unionizing, that because of their relationship to employees, that they are an employer who holds people's jobs and livelihoods in hand, that it creates an unjust atmosphere for a fair election. And so the National Labor Relations Board, the agency of the federal government that is empowered to run elections, it sets a timeline for.
I understand those rules. I also know, though, that it was filed right around the time of graduation. That's when we heard of it. And that just gets a lot of people to start thinking, well, why? Why now?
Anyone ask you to, talk about the union at any point in last year?
I had some people coming around my home, but again, we're busy.
But you didn't engage in that with
the
conversation?
There was no talk.
Okay, so you didn't talk to the people who tried to talk to you about the union?
No, there was always something in the door. And I talked to you for a time, and I had to really dig to find your number. Whenever I had numbers to answer the cards, nobody's there to answer the phone. And when I want to talk now.
I remember when you contacted me.
Yeah, I
It
got
was
you on the road.
after, it was after there were, I believe, 2 people who were kind enough to publish my phone number to the all faculty list. And I
I'm
do
also
remember
a-
babysitting my phone.
I'm also a former
right.
salesman. I can find phone numbers when I have to.
All right.
Wouldn't it be just a practical issue that the cars are in the boot for so long and this drags on too long, then we've got to go back and get more cars, get people to re-sign cars?
But then again, the way the process came around and the timing, there's a lot of questioning. You've all talked about fear. There's that fear there too.
So what's the fear with the timing? So
That
that
the numbers, it's already been established here that it's based on the numbers that have voted.
the number of people who signed.
No, it was based on the number of people who actually vote. If a look
In the election.
for the election,
Well, since
That's
it's
how
a mail
elections
ballot, there shouldn't be any issue with everybody having an opportunity to vote.
how much mail do you get at home when you get a bunch of junk mail? How
I would
Well, this
certainly,
is clear, this is pretty clearly labeled.
okay? Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
And
and
if
this is
people
pretty
are-
clearly labeled.
If people-
These are college teachers.
I know, but I'm also saying people are on vacation. They're traveling. It's a different time of year.
I can speak to this very specifically from experience from our election. We voted last July. We had 86% approval in our election. And, the timing of the summer.
How many voted?
I'm not, I don't have that number at hand.
You said you had 86% approval, but that's how many out of the number of votes received. But what's the percentage of the people who actually voted?
802 eligible for the election. We had in the range, again, I don't remember the exact number offhand, about 600 people returned ballots.
Okay, I'm just asking
So
because I'm concerned.
Can I also say that we're making, Herculean efforts to let everyone know that these ballots are coming. We'll then go out door knocking to every home to tell them when the ballots are there at their house and to tell them that you have 3 weeks to get it back. So, I certainly think on our end, we have every intention to try to, we'd love to get 100% voter participation. And we're working hard to bring about that type of result. So,
adjuncts, we had organizers out 12-hour days for 2 months.
Yeah, we have lawyers going
out.
Law clerks.
There wasn't a single person in our bargaining unit that had any excuse to say that they didn't hear from us, that they didn't have an opportunity.
and people will have an extended period of time to return ballots. That's one of the reasons the mail ballot elections take a longer time to go through. We're talking about over 3 weeks in this case. There are to return the ballot.
And I think for Point Park, it happened around the same time.
Yeah.
It was the end of that's how it happened. But again, you're not trying to sneak anything by or hoping
But
5 people
The
vote.
sense, the fear could be that you're
Yeah.
trying to sneak something through.
But
I guess
but
as somebody,
you said, we've been talking about it. You guys have been talking about it at Chatham for a year. We were talking about it at Chatham for 3 years. We said, if I'm trying to sneak something, I'm doing a really bad job of it.
It's in the Post-Gazette. Out. That was something that, if you didn't know about it by now, then you're either deliberately ignoring it, or you're so inundated by work that, gee, maybe a union would be a good idea.
You're talking to a guy who reads 2 papers a day from front to back, but I know I'm the exception. How many papers do you read a day, young lady?
I do read articles online, but not weekly.
Okay.
I saw the article.
I guess the other thing is, as somebody who's been driving around with the other law clerks, it's not like these places are easy to get to and we're getting to them. Like, a lot of us aren't from the area and we're up in Brookline on those side of the mountains on these tiny 1-2-way roads that should be one-way roads, knocking on doors, and people are saying, sure, would like to talk to you, and there's other people saying not interested, and we're at their house.
You want to find any place, go to the post office.
So I hear what you're saying, that there is a perception that the timing of the vote represents some strategic advantage. right? That's the perception. And there are many things I think that these guys up here would say, having talked to many of them, that there are strategic things that somebody will do, right? Like the timing of it, my feeling was that it was not a strategic plan to put out have the election occur at the time, when people are in flux, right? They're coming off of class or doing this. That, I don't think it represents a great advantage to the union to have, based on the cards that were signed, I think the USW wants everybody to vote.
The union we're the ones who petitioned for a mail ballot and proposed a mail ballot. We're the ones who wanted to make it as easy for people to vote as possible and not to have something that would be on campus in the middle of summer.
I wouldn't say that that there isn't a strategy here.
Well,
right? Obviously, there's going to be some strategy.
I
But
had
the timing of it is I think that's
I had that question even before Frank's letter came out.
okay.
I guess I don't understand what the strategy would be. I mean, I'll sway the election by timing it in the summer. It would have to be the case that they would expect that pro-union people would be less likely to go on vacation. I don't get it. I don't see why
Hey, there's a lot of faculty, as soon as classes are over, they take sabbaticals, they go on projects, they're gone.
Right, but then
Dave's the exception and so am I. In fact, you might be leaving later too.
Yeah, it's full-time faculty.
Part-time faculty, not eligible.
Well, I'm full-time, but I teach year-round. I'm not on a 9-month schedule.
I'm
We're
not sure
12
how-
months.
I'm not sure how many adjuncts are making the kind of money to go away for a month. I'm just saying.
But you never, but I taught at community college for 25 years, adjunct. I did that because I love to do it.
And I do this because I love to do it too, just to make that
Yeah,
clear.
but I'm
not
just saying,
making a full-time income, but I do it because I love it also.
yeah,
just to
but no, what I'm trying
clarify.
to say is that most adjuncts have other work that they do. I got to meet most of them up at the North Campus at community college down through the 25 years where I primarily taught. And I knew the adjuncts because they all come to faculty meetings in the fall.
yeah, so the one nationwide study that's been done that really tracked this particular issue found that 74.8% of adjunct faculty want full-time faculty work. So they're not primarily moonlighting professionals. That's not, a quarter of them is not a tiny number. I'm not saying we should ignore that experience. That's important, and it's something the union would certainly take into account in assessing the bargaining priorities and all of that. But you're talking about a minority of people. Most, like she is, they're professional academics, they're committed to their students, and they love the work, but they also want to be paid enough to eat.
Robin, one thing, looking at my clock, I think we only have 20 minutes left on this. So I'm not to cut anything off, but if there are any other questions, I don't want to get bogged down in just one question. If there's anything else you can
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Would you like to ask anything else?
I couldn't let Dave monopolize everything.
Yeah, I think I've asked. You go ahead. I've asked a lot. Clarity is important.
All right. Well, there was a question wondering what exactly, actually flat out, could someone potentially be on the receiving end of the kind of scathing emails that went out about Robin if they stepped up and spoke up? Like, okay, right.
If an organizer at Chatham, could they be on the receiving end of nasty emails?
Right, if there's an adjunct who
And
wanted
what would the
to,
recourse be? Is that
right.
Okay. I remember I called you years ago and I asked you that. I said, what could they do to me? If they do something to me, what recourse do we have?
Well, we could go to the NRB.
That's what we
and
did,
we
yeah.
could file a board charge, and we would. We will protect people from any type of adverse employment action by Chatham. So far, I think amongst adjuncts, we haven't with that, and I think the universities in particular are careful about that sort of thing because they're afraid of bad publicity. But we will take any action we need to protect people's rights.
Is it
I guarantee.
you're talking about a scathing letter from administrators, email from administrators, or
From
people-
administrators, like just that people are worried about feeling on the receiving end of being kind of under attack and under the microscope, and if that would also impact their employment, and
Absolutely.
what are the boundaries with that?
Absolutely, no matter what the outcome of the election is, you should come to let the people in the union know about that. Your rights are protected. You have every right to exercise pro or anti-union position,
Yes.
and the employer cannot retaliate against you for that. And let us know if you, as dancing with the election policy.
I can say from my own personal experience, I was part of a different organizing campaign. I was actually a teacher. I mean, the worst case scenario happened where several organizing teachers were in fact fired. But the AT did go up to bat for them, took the charges up to the NLRB. They did, and those teachers got all of their back pay as well as their benefits and had all their jobs offered back to them as well. So, I mean, you will be protected. And I felt very protected organizing. And during the course of the organizing, I was vocal. The more vocal we became, the more protected we felt.
That's true. That's an excellent point.
The more protected we were. And then I realized that I felt more confident speaking out because administration didn't want to talk to those who were organizing because clearly they knew their rights and knew, that we had the right to do this.
It's not only illegal for the employer to take action against you for exercising those rights, it's illegal for them to threaten to take action against you. So please let the union know if either of those things take place.
It's also illegal for them to question you, am I right? They can't
To interrogate you
about do you support
or about
them?
other people who support the union. So they can interrogate, they can engage in surveillance. If they're following you around to the coffee shop to see if you're meeting with the union folks, anything along those lines is illegal and should be reported.
But does it prohibit a discussion?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. This can involve threats and interrogation and taking disciplinary action.
And that's coming from the administration. You can call me a jerk. That's not a violation of the National Labor Relations Act. That's just, that would just never.
Well, nothing precludes the university from making its arguments. They did, but if they make it in a form that is threat, retaliation, or take retaliation, then it's completely different matter.
Forgive me, but I have to go. I have a class I actually have to teach tonight. Anybody have any quick?
I just wanted to say thank you for both articulating the financial piece, but also articulating the emotional and personal piece, and the moral groundwork going forward. That is a component of this that is important to be mindful of. That it's not just about a paycheck; it's about a healthier place to learn and be. I appreciate you articulating that.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you for bringing all of your questions from different perspectives. And we'll wrap up.